To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace. Hello, I'm Joe Roberts, and this is the Mayfield Friday Time. I've been reading from Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8.
And we say hello again. I'm Joe Roberts, and this is the Mayfield Friday Time, and we welcome you again to our Friday evening broadcast. With me is our co-host, Pastor, let's see, what is your name again? Pastor Bernie Dixon, and then our producer, Jamie, is on the board and frantically trying to get Brother Bernie's microphone working. And that's always the way it is a lot of times when you go live and you think everything is all ready to go, but it's not. So I was telling someone this afternoon that people see the results of our programs and think, oh, that's really easy, but they never see what goes on behind the scenes.
No.
Yeah, I made him a believer out of it, I'll tell you. Well, we've got several things to consider this evening, and we want to get right into it. But first of all, we want to ask Pastor Bernie to give us a little overview of what we can expect this coming Sunday.
Sunday morning, my message has to deal with salvation and transformation. And I'll be going more detail Sunday morning, so get ready for that. There's a big difference. Both of them are, and salvation is commanded, but it's not. God has never forced it. Same thing with transformation. It's commanded, but it's never forced, and it makes a big difference on the perspective how you see things biblically too. So
absolutely. What about Sunday night? You're continuing the
hopefully,
Satanology?
Yeah. So, and I want to change that name from Satanism to Satanology, or it's not the same thing, but I'm gonna get my the third. I think it's the third installment or the second installment finished up. That's the second installment. I hope to get that finished up. So
okay. Well, it is. Some people may be critical of a study of such a nature, but what is the philosophy? Know your enemy.
You got it.
And if we are not aware of how that Satan attacks God's children and how he attacks the Lord's churches and all of this kind of thing, then you are liable to very underestimate his ability and his power. Even Michael, the archangel in Jude, when he was disputing over Moses' body, he didn't even take him on by himself. He said, instead, the Lord rebuked thee.
Exactly.
So anyway, but
it's like you were just saying that we need to know our enemy.
Yes.
And of course, we were talking about this. If we don't know the book, we don't know how to deal with the enemy.
That's right.
And we're running into some. I just want to say this because we're going to get into some of these things. You created a monster when I started learning the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and Declaration of Independence.
Well, it's nice to know I can create something.
And the thing about it is, how do we defend something if we don't know what it says? The
That's
same
true.
thing, and
Yeah.
that's why we're getting in a mess because the American people, for the most part, do not understand what these things say. So we're going to be getting into these things, what's happening,
Yes.
and why it's happening. So
Yeah, and we need to understand from the very outset here on what we're looking at this evening, we need to understand that Satan is behind all of this.
absolutely,
And he is empowering these to do all of these things. So that without the satanic power that's behind all of these people,
Yes.
and I'm not necessarily saying that they are demon possessed. However, they are very greatly under satanic influence.
absolutely.
Whether they're saved or whether they're lost, Satan
Absolutely.
can still have a big influence over them.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're seeing in our world today. Things are in such a mess. And almost every day that goes by, brother, it finds me shaking my head at something that's just absolutely stupidity.
Yeah.
And that's the way a lot of the things are now.
Absolutely.
Well, let's get thank you, brother, and that's good to know what's coming. And we do invite you to, if you're not in your own services, now we don't want to take away you from your own church services, but if you're not in services of your own, we invite you to tune in to our broadcast from here at Mayfield Drive, and we have Sunday morning and Sunday evening. We're on YouTube, and what's that other one, Facebook? And we have both of those, both services, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and then we also are on the radio as well.
Oh, also,
IMBR.
Also, if they're close enough here and their church is closed, come on
Yeah,
down.
come on down.
Please do.
Absolutely. You said that your uncle, wherever it was,
Yeah,
that
down in Fort Myers.
He said he couldn't get even. Their church is closed and couldn't even get anybody.
Couldn't get a hold
from
of
there.
anybody. That's a sad commentary.
It is. It really is. But we have here at Mayfield Drive. We were doing these things before COVID-19 happened to hit, and so we have seen that it has been so important, especially during this time. All right, we're going to go into this evening. We have several Liberty Counsel briefings, and I'm not going to go into who Liberty Counsel is. I've stated that several times. And so I get these emails from Matt Staver, who is the president and the founder of Liberty Counsel. And I get them, whenever he sends them out, I get them.
Yeah.
And I didn't even look today, see if there were any new ones, but sometimes he'll send out one or two, sometimes even three if it's necessary. But this is dated July the 18th, just today's the 24th, that's just a few days ago. And many churches and leaders are completely unaware of how their freedoms are teetering on the edge of a sharp precipice. If the so-called Equality Act legislation is allowed to pass, it will force churches underground in America. Now, I made reference to this last week on the Equality Act, and we discussed what that Equality Act was, and we spent almost an hour and a half on that and a few other matters. But here is some of the real dangers. I want to reiterate again. Religious institutions must either abandon their biblical view of human relationships or bankrupt their property and resources to pay for a legal defense and to lawsuits, court, and attorney fees, and awarded damages given to those involved in the LGBT behavior under this legislation. Here's some of the situations that would trigger a lawsuit. If a pastor weds a couple, in other words, if a pastor does any kind of weddings, he would be forced to, quote unquote, marry an LBG couple or bankrupt the church in court.
Oh, yeah. That's why I'm not doing many. If I do any, I don't,
Well, since I stopped pastoring, I don't do any at all.
And I'm
Well,
glad
I did one. I did one.
Yeah, yeah.
But I knew who was involved in that.
Absolutely.
But I'm not making it I never have gone out of my way
Exactly.
to do weddings. I would rather do
Absolutely.
funerals than I would do weddings. A lot of people say, well, that's very morbid. Well, the funeral's more permanent.
Yeah, someone said that the weddings, they're getting started. Funerals, they're finished. So,
If a church hosts or allows a baby shower on their property, they would be forced to offer the same accommodation to an LGBT adoption celebration. Now, I'm thinking that this is not of your own membership. If you open up your facilities, like some churches do,
yes.
they'll
yes.
open their facilities for use by some groups. But if they do that, then they're opening it up to everything.
Absolutely. And once you start, you can't go back.
And once you start, you can't stop. If a church hosts an AA meeting, if asked, they also would be forced to host an LGBT rally in their church building. If a church hosts a wedding, they could also be forced to host an LGBT relationship celebration. If a staff member came out as LGBT, the church would be forced to continue the staff member's employment until finding a non-religious reason to fire them.
Yeah, sad.
Yes, it is. If a volunteer showed up dressed in drag and the church stopped them from serving in the nursery, it would be grounds for a lawsuit. If the church took a mission trip, they would not be able to house the children according to the biological gender if one of the boys wanted to sleep in the girls' room.
It's sad. Very sad. Oh, my goodness.
What are they going to do? This is what this is one of the things that crosses my mind. What about our youth encampments? Good question, huh?
Absolutely. And I don't know if our camps have ever started thinking about this.
I don't either. I don't know.
It's not like the days where if they came in shorts, they said nope, and it ain't the same thing anymore.
No, it's not. No.
So basically, what this is saying, even with our camps, if you invited the youth to come, sometimes that happens, and you have a boy that wants to dress up like a girl. If they said no, he couldn't, that's going to put that church in financial. That's going to bankrupt the church.
Well, not only the church, but then the camp itself would be
discrimination.
Right. Yes. All right. Basically, this would establish law that would place a target on churches. This will apply to churches, synagogues, mosques, and all religious institutions. That would even take you in our ministry here too.
It could.
IMBM,
Absolutely.
it's possible. Sharing the biblical view of relationships would be prohibited. Even doing so inside of a church would open it to damaging lawsuits. The church would not be able to protect children attending from being exposed to this sin while inside their church. If this bill is passed, we will be caught up in years of litigation in an antagonistic courts with a horrific legal foundation to attack religious freedom. It will drain the religious institutions of America. Now is the time to rise up against this bill. Now, what this bill is, it has passed the House of Representatives. It passed in what I think I said last week, 2018. Woo, 2018. Sorry about that.
They wouldn't have a problem in 1918.
No, we would not have a problem in 1918. You're right about that. But it was sent to the House. And my understanding is that any senator could bring it to the floor apart from the chair's schedule. And all it would take would be a voice vote
Absolutely.
of every senator, and all it would take would be a simple majority. That's my understanding of it now,
Yeah.
for it to pass into law.
You know what's scary about this? Something could come up 50 years from now that the preacher of Mayfield Drive Baptist Church said such and such, and then they could close the church down. They did that with John Wayne's. I don't know if you're aware of this, but John Wayne had said something to the effect that the homosexuality, what was going on in the movies,
Yes.
was a perverted lifestyle now,
Yep.
or perverted, and now they're taking everything down about him. And we
Even
say,
changed the name of an
Absolutely.
airport out in California.
and that was something he
named
said
after
50
him.
years ago.
Yes.
Gentlemen, I would like to make note.
Yes, make a note.
Our Skype username IMBR and Google Voice, our phone number 615-219-9926 are available for comments, as well as YouTube and Facebook. We'll be monitoring those comments and
All
questions.
right. Very
Well,
good.
thank you for
We'll
that.
try to feed them to you gentlemen as we are able.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, Brother Jamie.
Well, I'm glad that he got that corrected. He informed us when we started out, before we started out this evening, that those things wouldn't be available. So I'm glad he's got the corrections. You never know what's going on behind the scenes, you know.
See, that's why we ain't getting rid of Jamie.
Yeah, exactly. Can I have some of that too, please? Mine's empty almost. Okay, let's look at something else here that.
Oh, by the way, that must have been oil out of my car.
Oh no, that would.
You didn't get that, did you, Brother Jamie? It must be the oil out of my car.
I think he's ignoring
I
you.
was taught at a young age to ignore ignorance, so I was ignoring that.
If you want to know, my car is a Mountain Dew green, and they're
Yes,
drinking
it
Mountain
is.
Dew, so it must be the color of my oil too. So
Like I said, I'm just ignoring it. Trying to.
All right, this is another I wanted to bring to our attention that Liberty Counsel has made public. And this is, Matt Staver sent this out on July the 20th. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention admits, this is an admission, that having a common cold could trigger a positive COVID antibodies test. And you not even have the.
So we all would pass an antibody test.
Yeah, we would
That
probably
means
all
that-
be.
That means that basically everyone is positive for antibodies.
Yeah, that would bring about a positive result, and wouldn't it? Yeah, well, all right. But is their analysis correct? That's the question. Meanwhile, governors across the country are using rising case numbers to bring Americans back under restrictive mandates. A reported 25 states now have mask requirements in place. And you know, our county here, Rutherford County, the county mayor has come out now and said that it's mandatory unless you have certain things that keep you from it.
Oh, and unless you're like the one guy, I think, Jamie, you were saying that there was somebody you knew that was tested positive for COVID and never took the test. Well, I just got a new guy in Nashville. He said they called him and said that it was positive, and he told them, he said, I've never even taken the test, and went back. And they're coming up with this. And then even the area where you had this guy die in a motorcycle accident because of he died because of COVID. It's
Well, here's something. I went and got my hair cut this morning, and I was sitting there talking to the barber, and we were talking about this. And of course, you know, he's got it's a single chair barber, and he's got a very small shop, and so when I got there, there's 2 people sitting outside. We've got a couple chairs outside, so we all have to wait outside until just, the person getting their haircut and the barber inside. And so we were talking about it, and I said, it's crazy. And I told him about the individual that I knew, and he said, a lady that goes to church with him, her mother, and this is in Kentucky, but her mother is in Nashville and had liver cancer and was under treatment for liver cancer. Went to Nashville. I mean, they checked her in the hospital. She's undergoing treatment. Well, she took a turn for the worse, and due to complications from the treatment, passed away. And on her death certificate says that she died from COVID. Now, she was listed, while she was in the hospital, she was listed as a COVID patient, and the daughter was very upset about that because her mother had never been tested as COVID. Okay? And the hospital told her, for the protection of their employees and other patients, they have to list, unless they have a negative test on record, they have to list that individual as COVID and treat them as if they have COVID. So because her mother died, never had a negative COVID test, she was never tested, period. But because she did not have a negative COVID test on record, COVID was listed as cause of death. Even though she died from complications, she'd been undergoing chemotherapy treatment for liver cancer for quite some time. She died of complications of the chemotherapy, and that's why she passed away. Never once having been tested for COVID, but yet her official cause of death was listed as COVID-19.
That's stupidity.
So that's where, when you see these numbers, 130, 140, 180, 300 million, according to Joe Biden, obviously inflated. But when you see these numbers, how true are they?
Yeah.
I mean, every day we're hearing about more and more individuals who never tested, but the official mandate of that hospital to go with the guidelines was, state and federal guidelines was, if there's not a negative COVID test, they're listed as COVID.
So that puts your job in jeopardy. If you don't have COVID, but then you've got to stay incubated for 40 days. And then if it still comes, it's a mess.
Well, you just handed me an article here from the Blaze. The Nashville, Tennessee man says the state called him several times last week to tell him that he had tested positive for the coronavirus. The man, won't call his name, says he never took a test for COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he had received no less than 3 phone calls from contact tracers working on behalf of the state of Tennessee earlier in July. He said the call came after one of his coworkers tested for COVID-19. He said he neither showed symptoms of the virus nor had he been tested. Said the caller insisted that he had tested positive for the coronavirus. Quote, she specifically said, I'm looking at it right here. You tested positive. This is a follow-up to see how your symptoms are, he recalled. He said he was confused and asked the woman to clarify. She said that she repeated he said she repeated the news of the positive test several more times. He said, I'm 100% sure that's what she said. She was looking right at it, he told the station. She told me, I'm in the system, looking right at it, and you're showing positive. That wasn't the only call he received about his alleged positive test. A second caller told him that they were still seeing that you're positive. Courtesy call, he recalled, checking out your symptoms. He said he told the caller that the information was just wrong. And what else? A spokesman from the Tennessee Department of Health told the station that the department is investigating the calls. The spokesperson said, I can also tell you that there is no concern with our count of cases in regarding to our reporting those who test positive. Those entries are based on lab tests, not on information provided from the monitoring team. Yeah, right.
But you know that as soon as Florida was required to report their cases and their positive cases to the White House, not to the CDC, their numbers dropped from, I think, what was it, 39,000 or something like that to 11,000.
Well, there's a reason why the White House wants to report into them
Not the
and
CDC.
not directly to the CDC. I tell you.
Everybody says it's because Trump wants control of it. No, they want to investigate to try to make sure that those numbers are accurate.
Right.
Because just as that a lady whose mother passed away, and again, I don't know the individual in personally, but I do know the individual who does go to church with this woman. You know, she was very upset about it being reported incorrectly.
Right. Well, as I said, governors across the country are using rising case numbers to bring Americans back under restrictive mandates. A reported 25 states now have mask requirements in place. Matt Staver says, I'm deeply concerned that this is establishing a mechanism for governors to eventually enforce mandatory vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
If you can make it mandatory that you have to wear a mask to enter a place of business, to enter any public arena of any sort, if you have to have a mask, there's nothing to stop them from making it mandatory for you to have a vaccine or in writing a negative test. Now, in work, I just sent a gentleman down to Colombia, and he had to, before he entered the country, the Colombian government required a negative COVID test. Him and about 35 other gentlemen stopped in Mexico City, spent about 4 days in Mexico City while they had a COVID test performed. When they got the negative result, then they jumped on a charter plane, because the entire country of Colombia is closed, borders are closed, no flights in or out, no internal flights within the country, no flights from outside the country. Had a special charter flight to bring these individuals in, and when they got off the plane, they had to hand over the results of their negative COVID test to the official. Otherwise, they would be back on the plane leaving the country. So he's right. He's right. The governors are the ones who have the authority, not the president. President can't mandate it nationwide, but a governor can mandate it for his state.
Exactly.
Right? They can't mandate that you have to have the vaccine, but they can mandate that for the business to perform and have a business license to sell their goods, their services, anything like that, that they require a proof of a vaccine. Just like our schools require proof of vaccines for our kids. They have to have their vaccine before they, can be registered for school. Businesses have to have a business license to operate. Without the business license, they can be shut down, fined, put in jail, what have you. Very easily, if we as a people just roll over and say, okay, yeah, whatever's best for the greater good, what's next? Just like those of us that carry a handgun, we have to have a license to carry a handgun. What's next? You need to have a vaccine. You have to have proof of a vaccine before you can get your driver's license, before you can get,
And it would be this identification thing to where they could have a card. You got to have that card to go. If you want to go in the store, buy something, then you got to have this thing. Well, it could come down to that.
He's right. It's small steps. Baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't cram it down people's throat all at once. You do it a little at a time. Well, if you are willing to do this, then you'll be willing to do this. And I keep seeing on Facebook people talking about, and this drives me bonkers, but people talking about, well, just wear a mask just for everyone else's sake. I wear a mask because I can't go into the gas station. I can't go to the grocery
Yep.
store.
Yep.
That's the only reason I wear a mask. And no sooner as I'm exiting, I'm not even completely out the door and it's off
And same thing.
because it's garbage, right? There's no need for it.
I went to Home Depot. I did the same thing. I
Right.
went in, and when I came out, that puppy came off.
Right, right. So you're right. It's a mechanism. Sorry to interrupt.
Hey, that's your opinion is just as highly as ours is.
Yeah, we live in America.
Amen. All right, an explosive fact has come to light. The common cold could cause a positive COVID antibodies test. On their website, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, posted this on its, quote, test for past infection antibody test, unquote, page. Here's what they say. If you test positive, a positive test results shows that you have antibodies from an infection with the virus that causes COVID-19. However, there is a chance a positive result means that you have antibodies from an infection with a virus from the same family of viruses called coronaviruses, such as the one that causes the common cold.
I got to say something here. I was looking at the symptoms of the Black Plague, and coronavirus has got the same symptoms. Mononucleosis, the same, just a flu, the same symptoms. So you might have the Black Plague. Uh-oh, we're in trouble.
I'd rather
Bubonic
say
plague.
I'd rather say I had the bubonic. I can't even-
Bubonic plague.
I'd rather say that than have COVID-19. People look at you like you're crazy. Well, there you go.
I read, I think it was this week, that there was someplace in Africa that the bubonic, the plague had resurfaced again.
Hey, I got a question. I'm not watching football, but what are they going to do about these football players? Are they no 6 feet apart? and they're going to have a mask on. I mean,
They go play instead of tackle football, play with paintballs.
or a ragtag. You know, as long as you. I'm serious. I mean, it's
Oh,
Good question.
You can't.
wrestling.
Oh, wait. We've got to wear a mask. They've got to wear a mask underneath their helmet. And then wait, we got to stop. His mask came off.
What about
Stop the
wrestlers?
play, redo.
What about wrestlers?
Oh, I'm sorry. I can barely breathe with these masks. The cloth mask, you know, man, I struggle to breathe walking across the parking lot. I couldn't imagine trying to run 100 yards with this on. I'd be dying. I'd be just fall over. He's like, 4 more yards.
It's getting
No,
crazy.
that's not happening.
It's getting crazy.
Not getting, it's got there. It's there already. This means the common cold could lead to a positive antibodies test results for COVID-19, even if the patient never had been exposed to or contracted COVID-19. And that will be counted as another case and added to the numbers.
Say
All right.
something else about that. If you look, you're driving down the interstate here in Tennessee, driving down the interstate in Kentucky, wherever, you'll see on the DOT signs, you'll see, please answer the phone if you get a phone call from whatever the hotline is for COVID tracing.
Huh.
So if someone gives your name, or they were around you and they're positive for COVID-19, and they say, oh, well, I met with Joseph Roberts and was within 6 feet of him and didn't have a mask on. Well, now all of a sudden they've got your name in the system that you have been potentially infected by, inadvertently affected by this. So now you're on the list.
Oh yeah, hit
And
list.
they're starting to call you, and you're like, oh, I've never been tested. But you've been in contact with someone who now is positive.
Supposedly.
Yeah, supposedly is now positive or showing symptoms. Now, just like that gentleman that the Blaze listed, somebody worked with. Well, who's to say, oh, now you're listed as positive even though you've never been tested, whatever.
Right.
I mean, it's quite possible that's how that happened to him.
Brother
Oh.
Bernie showed me while you were speaking there. He pulled up the symptoms for bubonic plague, and
Let's go right
they're
here.
basically the same symptoms as COVID-19.
Swollen lymph nodes. Let's see, abdominal pain in the muscles of the abdomen, fever, chills, fatigue, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting. That's some of the bubonic plague. This is what is this? COVID-19. Fever, chills, cough, shortness of fatigue, muscle body aches. How about the flu? Can be dry, chills, body aches, sweating, and they all have diarrhea. If you have a common cold, they could be.
Now that explains the toilet paper run. Now we finally understand why everybody had to buy out all the toilet paper in the world
Oh yeah.
when this
Yeah.
all happened.
Oh yeah.
Woo,
And
gotta
now
buy
you
toilet
can
paper.
So what are all these people that have extra rolls of toilet paper? What are they doing? Put them on eBay or something now?
That's an entirely different subject
I know,
that
I mean-
we could talk all night about on that
Oh
subject too.
yeah. I mean,
The Atlantic, which is a magazine, already reported this regard in multiple states around the country. Quote, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is conflating the results of two different types of coronavirus tests, distorting several important matrices and providing the country with an inaccurate picture of the state of the pandemic. We've learned that the CDC is making, at best, a debilitating mistake, combining test results that diagnose current coronavirus infections with the test results that measure whether someone has ever had the virus. Unquote.
you know what this sounds like? Do you remember? I know when your parents and your child has head lice, and you're sitting there scratching. You might not have it, but now because you have one person that has a mask on, now everybody's going to make sure that
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Well, these bogus numbers are exactly what many governors are using to close down their states and put their state back into a lockdown and force businesses to become unwilling enforcers of arbitrary mask policies that any other whims these governors might have. In fact, tracking tests showed that it might be just a person having had the common cold and now being immune to a specific variety of the common cold.
I gotta love living in a small town. Franklin, in Franklin, I went, paid a water bill today, got my hair cut, did a couple of other errands. The only place that actually would not let you in without a mask was Walmart. Everywhere else was like, yeah. They have the signs on the doors because they're following the guidelines. And even their employees don't quite completely follow it. They've got them on, maybe down around their face, not their nose. It's like, it doesn't do any good if it's not up on your nose too, so yeah.
The governor of Virginia has declared his intent to force private businesses to enforce his mask orders. He said, I want to be clear, this is not the end of the actions we may take, but the beginning. And then here's what he said, until we have a vaccination, it will impact everything that we plan.
You got to kind of question that anytime you hear, I want to be perfectly clear, if it's really true. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
If you ever hear that, I want to be perfectly clear. Someone else said that.
Yes. Yeah.
You're not old
That
enough
was
to remember that,
before your
brother.
time.
I want to be perfect. Okay.
That was Nixon, right?
No. I'm not related to him by no way. That was
Oh.
Nixon, not Dixon.
I said Nixon.
Oh, okay.
I didn't say
Sounded-
Make sure that you
sounded-
did say that.
Sounded like Dixon to me.
I can't talk good either, so.
I'm not a crook. Neither is half of Congress either.
Yeah, right. Liberty Counsel now has federal lawsuits filed against 5 tyrannical governors who apparently don't believe the First Amendment right to religious liberty applies to the citizens of their state.
Say what?
Each of these cases against the governors of Maine, Virginia, Kentucky, Illinois, and California represent a fight for religious freedom that applies to all Americans.
And don't even
It
get me
does.
started on
It does.
Kentucky governor. I don't.
I mean,
Still have not figured out how that guy got elected in the state of Kentucky.
Well, he was the one that when one of the churches, I think it was a Baptist church in Kentucky somewhere, I don't remember exactly where now.
Lexington.
Was it Lexington?
No, Louisville. It was Louisville.
They were in their cars in the parking lot. Nobody got out of their cars, right? But he had the state police to come and take down the driver's license of every car in the parking lot.
And
And
issue
then he
fines.
required all of them to a 14-day stay-at-home quarantine.
Yep, and they all got fined.
And they all got fined.
Yep.
these are drivers.
These are church members that
Church
were
members.
having an outside church service. They're in their
Oh,
cars.
yeah, I remember
They're sitting
that.
in their cars, and the pastor's there at the. I mean, it's like we did it in the parking lot, and everybody sat in their cars. And
Yeah.
get this, their cars. It wasn't parking space. It was car, empty parking space. Car, empty
6
parking
feet rule.
space. More than 6 feet.
Okay.
Okay, and they're sitting there with their windows up because it's hot, had the AC on, and the pastor, as he's preaching, it's being transmitted over an FM radio, and so they'd turn their radio to the FM station and would listen to it, okay? They're not even, I mean...
That was a violation of the Constitution.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Breaking the law.
Absolutely. And, you know, again, I don't understand how this guy got elected, but basically what it boiled down to, he got elected because the other guy who was running, which was much more conservative, did what a lot of us do and misspeak or say something in the wrong manner or what have you, that was not very nice to, or was taken the wrong way toward teachers and things like that. And literally, the teachers union pushed so dramatically against him. And even diehard Republicans voted for this other guy instead of him.
You know what?
And so Kentucky got this crackerjack. I don't know what else to call him.
You know what I think, Brother Jamie and Brother Joe? I think it comes down to this, that the people, the majority that are in government have no clue about the Constitution. But just like you said, what happened with that, and I wrote this in here, this is my little notes. What about changing or compromising the Constitution? That was a question. So long as the people want their human rights protected, the Constitution must remain uncompromising, unchanging defender against all challengers. Mm-hmm. And once that begins to happen, then what we will see is a power that will actually bring down America. It's like this: the Constitution controls the political powers that protects our rights. Changing those privileges and constraints exposes our rights to political abuse and eventual destruction. And that's one step that's going on. People don't know what the Constitution says.
Yeah.
And I think as a pastor, not only as a pastor, I think it is important that I know what these things say.
If you don't, then you take a chance on the church deciding to do something
Absolutely.
that could get us in a lot of trouble
Absolutely.
because we'd be violating the laws of this nation and the Constitution.
Absolutely.
And when a governor makes a statement that's violating the laws of this country, it's critical that you and the leaders of
Absolutely.
our church say, yes, the governor said this, but that's against the law.
Absolutely.
We're going to follow the law.
Absolutely.
We're going to follow the Constitution. We're going to follow that. If that causes us, like that church in Kentucky, if that causes us to be fined, so be it. And one of these legal groups is assisting that church in those members and fighting that. But something else I want to mention to you. That governor of Kentucky being elected because the other individual that was running against him made a statement and everybody didn't like it. And so they literally banded together and voted for this other guy, Beshear. Like I said, he's a Cracker Jack. And conservatives now wonder why he got elected. He got elected because the other guy said something, no one liked it, and they didn't even care about the guy that we have now. They didn't even care what he stood for, what his beliefs were, anything. You had Baptist people who voted for this guy, who believes that abortions are more important than churches.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay? I saw something yesterday. I was reading it and it struck me just so vividly. If Trump loses the election in November, it will not be because people didn't get out and vote. It will be because conservatives just want it over.
Yep. Yep.
And they think they're playing a safe bet by voting for the other guy instead of Trump. That it will all be done and the Democrats will allow, the liberals will allow everything to go back to the way it was as long as Trump is out. But I've got news for you.
It's
If
just
Trump
beginning.
gets reelected, it's going to get worse.
Yes, it is.
If Biden gets elected, it's going to get worse. And I made the statement to the barber this morning. I said, the difference that we have to determine as child of God, as children of God, is this. We can stand for the truth on the side of the right and be on the side of the right, okay, following our president, or we can stand for the truth and be on the side of the wrong. With a liberal as our president, we will be in the wrong.
You know, you just said something, and I was listening to listen to talk radio, and he was, I don't remember who it was, but he's right in line what you're saying. And here's the problem that he said, if Joe Biden gets in there, he said what we've seen with the destruction with those who hate Trump, and then we see that these people think it's okay. If Biden gets in there, guess what the conservatives are going to start doing? Well, that's happened to them. We're going to retaliate. That's what he's afraid could happen.
Yeah,
I hate to say that, but
would be a civil war then.
What we were talking about was, you know, he made the statement that, you know, talk radio talking about there would be, if Joe Biden gets in there, or if Trump gets reelected, it'd be a civil war. And I said, you're probably right. Like I said, regardless of who gets it, it's going to get worse.
yes,
It is.
But I would rather be standing for the truth on the side of the right than standing for the truth, legally right, okay? Now, I mean, be clear about that, the legal right, right?
Yes.
I'd rather be standing for the truth on the legal right than standing for the truth on the legal wrong. And just because it's legal doesn't make it right,
absolutely.
That's correct.
okay?
Yeah.
So you can be right all day long doesn't mean you'll be legally right.
Exactly.
So that's
exactly.
what I'm talking about. And
Exactly.
if we have a liberal president and the liberals are in control of our federal government, it will be the legally wrong.
Here's one thing. I don't want to take your time, but I said this, and I think you heard me say this. Brother Jamie, you may have heard me say this, that people talk about standing up for the flag. But if things happen like what we're talking about, how many really would?
That's a good question.
I don't know if people have enough guts to do that. They don't know what a patriot's all about.
In Illinois, you can go to a recreational marijuana store or an abortion clinic to kill your baby, but if you go to church, the state might just bulldoze the building. California, you can stand shoulder to shoulder with Marxists singing about killing cops, but you cannot worship with your friends in your own home. So, I tell you, California Governor Newsom is promoting Marxist uprisings even as he tries to crush churches and even Christians in worship in Christians' own homes. Now, the word Christian there is used probably pretty loosely, but we get the idea. And here's another one. After a woman refused to sign a state document regarding COVID-19, the county treated her family like criminals. Yeah, animals too, probably. The county put them on house arrest and sent a team of 8 sheriff deputies and health officials in 5 cars to get their resident to slap ankle bracelets on them that will go off if they get more than 200 feet away from their home. According to this mom, this treatment was not because they were unwilling to self-quarantine. They were planning to do so. Thank you. It was simply because she was unwilling to sign a document giving up the freedom for their family to take an ambulance in case of a medical emergency for her infant daughter. The government document would include a promise to wait on the phone or on hold with the governor's office first to first receive approval from a bureaucrat prior to taking an emergency conveyance, that is an ambulance, to the hospital. This restriction would have affected family who had not tested positive but had only been exposed to one asymptomatic person. So they're all outfitted with ankle bracelets. Did they rob a bank or kill someone? No. Did they visit the local restaurants and bars to willfully infect others? Again, no. They wanted to care for their infant daughter and have the freedom to, if the emergency arose, take her by ambulance to the hospital. Yet, because of a poorly written, undefined government document, this young family has been treated like common criminals. Announcing a knock on the door, her husband was met by 8 deputies and a health official that arrived in 5 cars. When the mother expressed concerns about the document, the mother and father were fitted with ankle bracelets. The document demands people agree to a long list of orders, including one person cannot stay in their own car alone and drive across the county line and return home, even though it would be impossible to spread the virus to others in this manner. In a separate demand, the document also requires that people not leave the state, even though it's clearly impossible for someone to leave their state while staying within their own county. Duh. It requires that they take their temperature at approximately the same time every day and report it to the health department. And among other demands, quote, not travel by any emergency conveyance without the prior approval. And the last one was the main concern for Elizabeth Linscott. I understand their concerns about this quarantine document, Matt Staver says. I encountered a similar one when Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, we were just talking about that, sent a document to all members of the Maryville Baptist Church who remained in their cars during an Easter parking lot service. Our clients did not sign. We sued and got an injunction against the governor. This all started for Elizabeth when she wanted to go visit her grandparents. even though she was experiencing no symptoms. Out of an abundance of caution, she got tested for the trip. Her test became positive, and that's when it started. She said, if I have to go to the ER, if I have to go to the hospital, I'm not going to wait to get the government's approval to go. I say amen.
That's right.
This is the America that we live in right now. July the 22nd. America's religious freedom has enabled the gospel of Jesus Christ to spread throughout the world. America's founders believe that the unalienable right to religious freedom is afforded to all people everywhere. America explicitly rejected the idea of a state-controlled religion. But now, a handful of pro-abortion, anti-church, Democrat governors are issuing new restrictions that impact domestic houses of worship and the worldwide church and large international ministries, including missions. Now he goes on to tell who these are. They wouldn't be anyone that we would fellowship with, but the principle is they're being restricted to carry out their ministries. And
no matter the denomination, no matter what it is, if they lose their rights, so do we.
Absolutely.
So we should fight just as hard for theirs because we're literally fighting for our own.
Absolutely.
Yes, we are. He says these ministries alone, just 3 of these, reach well over 1 billion people around the globe. If these ministries are silenced here at their source in the United States, many hundreds of millions of people worldwide could be affected. Now, if we were shut down, I have no idea what kind of ramifications that would be.
Yeah.
I have no idea how, we don't know how broad our podcasts and our broadcasts are going. But we do know that we have our messages literally spread all over the globe. Now, whether people listen or not, I don't know. But it's there, all over the globe. Just our ministry here, from this small church in Smyrna, Georgia.
Smyrna, Tennessee.
Smyrna, Tennessee. There is a Smyrna, Georgia.
There is there.
But
Yes,
I'm a
it
Smyrna,
is.
Tennessee. Thank you.
There's one in Revelation, too.
Yeah, there is. He almost got me there. He goes on to say, we are witnessing a global assault against the church. He said, we are blessed to work with churches that have no internet to those which have a worldwide media presence and operation. And he underlined this in his email. Think about the fact that in California, it is illegal to go to a neighbor or a friend to pray and anoint with oil, even though they are experiencing a dark time, sickness, or even death. My friends, this is wrong and cannot stand.
That's right.
We're just not seeing. Wow, we're out of time already. Amazing. But you know, what we've talked about today has just been the tip of the iceberg.
That's right.
There's going to be a movement. You can count on it. That they're going to try to require every individual to be vaccinated in order to do anything. It's coming. Is this the mark of the beast? I wouldn't go so far as saying that. But
One step toward it.
it's a step toward it. Yes.
That's right. I keep saying, and I keep thinking over and over every time I read some of these things, is that we can't say it's the mark of the beast. Oh, if it's a vaccine, it'll be the mark of the beast. The vaccine won't be the mark of the beast.
No,
The Bible's
no.
pretty specific about
Yeah.
the mark of the beast,
Yeah.
right? And we have to take it as it is.
Yes.
It will be a mark.
Yeah.
And you have to have the beast first.
Yeah.
And you can't have the beast until you've got other things that have happened first.
Yeah.
But, brothers, I tell you, starting with mask, you have to have this to do business. You have to have this to buy and sell goods. It's a small leap to the next. It's a vaccine. You've got to have the vaccine. It all started when we had to have licenses to perform business.
Yes.
You had to have a license to operate a car. You had to have a license to sell goods. You had to have a license for everything. That was the start.
Yes, it was.
One step. Now we're getting even more. I mean, we have to have a license to get married. We have to have a license for everything that we do, even our rights. It upsets me that I had to get a license to carry a handgun. What is the Second Amendment for if I have to get a license from the state to do that?
Yep.
Right?
Right.
Okay? But if you're going to be a journalist and you're going to be a legal journalist, you have to get some type of permit or license to be able to have a press credential. What is that? You're getting a license to be a reporter. Right? But yet you have the right to be a reporter regardless, guaranteed by the Constitution, the First Amendment, to say, print what you would like. Right?
Yeah.
We have that right, but yet we don't. We have to have permission. So everything that we do, all of this is just another step. And people aren't going to willingly go with it. They're not going to go straight to the mark of the beast. No, Satan knows this.
Yeah.
And I would be willing to go on record that I'm younger than both you gentlemen. I'm willing to go on record that my generation will never see the beast. I say that only because the things that we've discussed in Revelation for the beast to be there, and for there to be a mark of the beast, there has to be the beast first. To get to the beast, there's some things that have to happen, and you're not going to make those steps quickly.
That's true.
Happened to the Jews in Germany.
Right. But
Little-
it didn't.
little bit.
It happened little at a time.
Little at a
time.
Yeah.
Brother Jamie, I would say this, and we're coming to the close on this, but I would say this, that anybody that's a member of any church, take the opportunity to be in church on Sunday. You may never get that opportunity anymore. Don't abuse that privilege. And I would say that to the members of Mayfield Drive Baptist Church. Take the opportunity. It may come time where you won't have that, and you're going to wish you did.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Yes. Well, we're going to draw to a close here. We could go a lot long. We could probably go all night and not adequately cover the subject. But yes, please. We need to resolve in our minds and our hearts that we are going to continue to stand for the Lord. We're going to do our best to serve Him to the best of our abilities, regardless of what comes.
Real quick, I just realized Sister Katie Kelso made a statement during our broadcast about when we were talking about the baby shower. She made the comment, just hold the baby shower in a home. Well, from what we were seeing, that may not even be possible at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
When she was talking about, you were mentioning churches not being able to do certain
Right.
things, without being sued and what have you,
Yeah.
or transgender or LBGQT,
With-
IZ, whatever.
with
I can't even get all the initials. Unless I'm reading them right directly in front of me, I can't get all the initials right.
with the direction that California is going, yes, that would be a possibility. All right, let's have a word of prayer, and I'm going to again ask our pastor if he will lead us, and then we'll be closed.
Father, it has been good to come together with these men, and I thank you so much for the technology that has been provided. Thank you so much for allowing us to present this information. But Father, I pray you'll just put a hedge around this ministry. And as we prepare for the days that are ahead, I pray you'll protect us. Father, I pray that you'll give protection to our president, give him the strength that he needs and wisdom. And Father, I pray that some wonderful turnaround will happen by the next election period. May we not take our freedom for granted. And Father, I'm just praying that you put a conviction of all the members of Mayfield Dry Baptist Church, that they take the opportunities for the time they have to be in the services. Thanks so much for loving us and caring for us. Bring us back the next appointed time. We'll give you all the praise, honor, and glory. We ask in the name of Christ, Lord and Savior. Amen.
I'm Joe Roberts, and we'll see you next week, Lord willing.
Mayfield Dry Baptist Church, that they take the opportunity